It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, a MasterChef contestant tells Sky News Gregg Wallace constantly made innuendos and one sexually inappropriate comment left her in tears. Chef Jackie Carney says she has been troubled by Wallace's status as a household favourite for years, and it was only a matter of time before claims against him emerged.
There is no way that other people haven't been hearing these innuendos constantly throughout filming and throughout his time, and that it's been put down to lad culture, it's been put down to banter.
Today, amid condemnation from Downing Street, the presenter apologised for blaming the allegations on middle-class women of a certain age, and he said it is clear he needs to take some time out. Also ahead, fresh calls to ban under-16s from social media. Campaigners want the UK to follow Australia's lead and impose tougher controls to limit children's exposure to harmful content online. We'll hear from a father whose son was murdered after a row which began on social media. Plus, police smash a £7 billion drug smuggling ring, thought to be the biggest in UK history. And I'll speak to the singing granddad, the 92-year-old with almost 500,000 followers on TikTok. Oh, that's come. Much more here on the UK Tonight. A former contestant on MasterChef has told Sky News that Gregg Wallace made sexual innuendos constantly during filming, and that one inappropriate comment left her in tears. Wallace issued an apology today after a social media video yesterday morning in which he described the women making misconduct allegations against him as middle-class women of a certain age. Wallace denies the allegations against him. Chef Jackie Carney was a contestant on MasterChef in 2011 and later returned as a guest judge. She told us today that she's been troubled by his status as a household favourite over the years and felt it was only a matter of time until claims against him emerged. Sky correspondent Ashna Huralag has our main story tonight.
That chutney needs to be perfectly balanced if it's just going to be the two items on the plate.
By 2018, Jackie Carney was a regular guest judge on the BBC's MasterChef. After first appearing on the show in 2011, she had worked with Gregg Wallace on several occasions.
You've got 10 minutes, Nisha.
OK.
We doing well?
Memories that up until now Jackie has only shared with friends. One stands out the most after she had published her second book.
I was feeling really proud of it, and I wanted to give John and Gregg a copy of my book. And John, as ever, was a complete gentleman. Gregg was in the studio, and he was in the middle of the studio, in the middle of filming, actually having his makeup touched up. And there was crew everywhere, and he was mic'd up. I came into the studio and was like, "Oh, hi, Gregg. I've got something for you." And he said, "Oh, is it a present for my..." and gave that whole sort of mansplay towards me. And I was so shocked. I actually stopped. I was walking across the studio and I stopped right in my tracks. And I felt like I wanted the ground to swallow me up.
Jackie says she felt embarrassed and humiliated, and that time and again his actions were excused.
There is no way that other people haven't been hearing these innuendos constantly throughout filming and throughout his time, and that it's been put down to lad culture, it's been put down to banter. But banter doesn't make somebody, if it's just banter and it's fun, then why am I crying in the toilets?
Allegations against the presenter have been mounting for days. His defiant dismissal that his accusers were middle-class women of a certain age have been fiercely criticised, with Downing Street labelling them misogynistic. It didn't take long for yet another social media video, though, this time with an apology.
I want to apologise for any offence that I caused with my post yesterday and any upset I may have caused to a lot of people. I wasn't in a good headspace when I posted it. I've been under a huge amount of stress, a lot of emotion. I felt very alone, under siege yesterday when I posted it. It's obvious to me I need to take some time out now while this investigation is underway.
The investigation is being led by the makers of MasterChef, which will air as planned. But not everyone thinks it's a good idea.
I think there is an argument to press the pause button tonight on this programme going out, or if not, at the very least, to put some sort of health warning that this was filmed before these allegations came to light and it is all under investigation.
Whilst the union representing those working in media and entertainment has slammed broadcasters for their internal reporting processes, Banijay UK, the production company behind MasterChef, say they are taking these allegations seriously and that MasterChef welfare processes are regularly adapted and strengthened with clear protocols to support both crew and contributors. Tonight, the show stays on air, but for how long and at what cost? Ashna Haranag, Sky News.
Well, Sky's Molly Malone is following this story for us tonight and joins us from Television Centre, where the BBC's production arm is based in West London. And Molly, MasterChef is going to air tonight in, less than an hour now. Gregg Wallace making another apology today for the first apology, which wasn't really an apology. Talk to us where he's at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we certainly saw some contrition today, in stark contrast, really, to what we saw over the weekend as he initially responded to allegations that were mounting against him, saying in an Instagram video that actually those accusations were merely coming from middle-class women of a certain age. That prompted clear anger. It aggravated, I think, his accusers. It was also what drew Downing Street into the conversation, saying that those initial comments by Mr. Wallace were misogynistic and inappropriate. We also heard today that the Culture Secretary had sought assurances from the BBC that there were robust processes in place to deal with these complaints. Now, in terms of the BBC's response, well, for their part, they said they did take action back in 2017 and 2018, that Wallace had been warned at points about his behaviour. They have answered some of the mounting questions today, confirming that MasterChef, the pre-recorded programmes, will go ahead as planned. The first on air, back on air at 9 o'clock this evening, another couple of episodes in the back half of the week as well, and that Christmas special that fans can expect as we know it will go ahead as planned. But I think it's fair to say there will continue to be many more questions about exactly what the institution knew and when, and the same for the production agency Banijay UK that employ Mr. Wallace. They've got that external investigation going on, but clearly those questions continue to be mounting up.
Molly, thank you. Molly Malone there outside the Television Centre, BBC Television Centre in London for us tonight. Well, I'm joined now in the studio by crisis management consultant Jonathan Gabay. Also joining us this evening, former executive producer for current affairs at the BBC, Marcus Ryder, and workplace culture expert Helen Dallimore. Thank you all for joining us tonight on what is turning into a really big story. Jonathan, I'm going to come to you first. Gregg Wallace issued a statement, didn't he, after these allegations came out? This happened yesterday morning, I think. And this is the middle-class women comment. And he's issued another response today, which is more apologetic. What have you made of his response? Because a phrase that is used to my 4-year-old daughter at her school popped into my head, which was less talking, more listening.
I would say less talking, more action. And action means, in this case, before he would have said anything, my advice to him would have been to shut up and say nothing. But he hasn't gone that way. Instead, he certainly has spoken. And the problem with what he said in terms of the latest video that he's come up with is it can sound like it's all about me, that I was in a very bad space, and I'm sure he was in a very bad space, and, his head wasn't right and all that sort of idea. The trouble with that from a reputational and a psychology point of view is that the people who are allegedly affected by all this stuff would say, well, hold on, this isn't about you, it's about us. In fact, this is about a much bigger story than you, and even a bigger story than us. It's about respect. It's about culture in the workplace.
What do you think he should do now? Because he's saying he needs to take some time out, and presumably he's had someone like you on the phone after that first video going, you need to stop. You need to apologise for that and then just stop. What does he do now?
Reflect, review, and then move on from there. Now, in terms of review, I think what will happen now is that there's going to be, from a reputational point of view, there's two parts of this story. There's the BBC, of course, and then there's him. Okay, so what I think...
And there's a production company in between, isn't there? Banijay, they're carrying out an investigation, yeah.
So what I think immediately what the BBC needs to do is they need to show that they have the right practices in place, ethical practices, understanding and stuff like that. They need to then, moving forward, what they need to do is update the media such as Sky and say, this is what we're actually doing, say, 2 months hence. Yeah, how are we supporting people? What training have we given? And stuff like that. Now, for him, what he needs to do is cooperate, show in terms of reflection that maybe if, you know, he goes down that route, that he's taking personal development stuff, yeah, that he's doing what he can, yeah, to make amends. But he has to, going back to the school, he has to show action, right? And it has to be considered action and take it from there.
Has to show that he gets it right. That's the starting point.
Absolutely.
And let's bring in Marcus Ryder, former executive producer at the BBC. I mean, Jonathan hinted at it there, but I think it would be remiss if we thought that this was a problem particular to the BBC. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. So I am a former executive, but my current role is CEO of the film and TV charity that looks after the well-being of people working in film, television and cinema. And it is a massive problem. This is not a problem that is just about Gregg Wallace or about any one individual. We do a survey every 2 years, and 59% of respondents in our 2022 survey said that they would not report sexual harassment, discrimination, because they think it wouldn't be addressed. About half think that if they did report it, it would make matters worse. And 47% were afraid that if they reported claims of sexual harassment and problems around that, that they would risk getting work in the future. And so this wasn't a BBC question, this wasn't a Gregg Wallace question, this was about the entire industry. The entire industry really has a problem with being able to report and having the confidence, the workforce having the confidence that these problems will be addressed.
I want to bring in Helen here, Helen Dallimore, former employment lawyer and a specialist in workplace behaviour and culture. Helen, there has been a lot of support for Gregg Wallace. That has to be reflected. He's been, you know, retweeting support on social media because a lot of people are saying, let it go, what's the big deal? Dad jokes, sexual innuendos, sexual inappropriate jokes. This happens in workplaces all over the place, not just in TV and film. And a lot of people are saying, you know, actually, it's not that big a deal. Clearly, it's problematic for those that were upset, the allegations of problematic behaviour that has made people uncomfortable. But is any of it illegal?
Well, yeah, we're all different. We might react differently to the things that have been said. And there's this polarisation of whether you're for or against any situations. But actually, there's a lot of nuance. People will react differently to different situations. As far as sexual harassment goes, it's been around for a very long time. Nothing new there. People talk about banter and what's banter and what's harassment. Actually, where is the line? There's clearly some unwanted conduct here, and the definition of sexual harassment covers unwanted conduct that's of a sexual nature, that's purpose or effect, so whether it's intentional or whether it just has that impact, violates somebody's dignity or creates an intimidating, hostile or degrading or offensive environment, which is what a number of people who've raised concerns are saying that it did. I heard on the footage before somebody saying that they were crying in the toilet, so it clearly had a negative impact on them. There's guidance around this, and the guidance has been around for a very long time, stating that things like sexual innuendos, jokes, talking about one's sex life, for example, intrusive questions can be caught by that sexual harassment definition. So sexual harassment has been around for a long time, and I think a number of people would recognise that this is unwanted behaviour. It's not professional behaviour. We might all react differently in the workplace, but it's the impact that we need to think about on those people and how it's affected them. There's an element of reasonableness to this, but a large number of people would be also saying that this would naturally be making people feel very uncomfortable, and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, Helen, has guidance or rules on workplace behaviour changed in the last 2 decades? Because Gregg Wallace does cite the fact that he's worked in TV for 20 years, and he says, 13 complaints from 4,000 contestants. I mean, that number might have gone up. We've certainly spoken to another complainant tonight. Has the dial shifted in what's on and what's not? Because so many women pointing out that it's never actually been acceptable to them, but these middle-aged women that Gregg cited are now old enough and confident enough to say, we're not putting up with that.
Yeah, so I think expectations have changed. The law hasn't really changed. We've obviously seen #MeToo, and we've done a lot of work at Burndean around preventing sexual harassment. There has been a change since last month. Employers are now under proactive duty. They must take reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment, so putting that onus on the employer and making sure that we're not creating cultures where this sort of behaviour can thrive. Sometimes people say that they feel like they can't say anything these days and that things have changed as a result. Actually, that guidance has been there for a long time. Sexual harassment has been unlawful for a long time. What might be changing is that more people feel that they can challenge it and they can say what they feel uncomfortable about.
Jonathan, you were nodding along to a lot of what Helen said there, and I noticed that you were particularly agreeing with Marcus when he mentioned problems with reporting and procedure, even though, the BBC have been through a number of these scandals, Strictly, Hugh Edwards, whatever, and they're changing. They're saying that they're putting these structure in place, but there still seems to be a fundamental problem, BBC and other organisations in TV and film, where people don't feel comfortable in calling out and reporting this behaviour, and particularly when it comes to things like inappropriate jokes. People will feel like that might be a bit silly to report.
It's about the 2 T's. The first T is transparency. So I feel that big organisations need to be transparent. And the second T is about training. Yeah, to show that, maybe that was the old school way of doing, I don't know, of doing these sorts of things. But, we're about to hit 2025. It's a completely different world. People have been talking about, J.K. Rowling was talking about the idea that, it was about middle-aged women. And she was saying, of course, if it was young people, they wouldn't have a chance to respond. This goes back to what your person was saying earlier. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter what culture you are. It's about, if you are in the workplace, as in anywhere else in life, it's about mutual respect, mutual understanding, and as you said yourself, about listening, and moving on. Mr. Wallace and the BBC could come out of this quite strong. Seriously.
How so?
How so? Because if they are showing that they are doing something about it, perhaps going on, as I said, personal development or whatever it might be, but actually doing something, showing real remorse, showing real regret, and showing real review in terms of, I'm going to show you that I'm doing something. This isn't about me. This is about us, because we're working together, we're living together, and we're trying to cooperate.
I mean, it sounds so sensible and so easy. There's a blueprint when you say it. I'm going to bring Marcus in at this point, because obviously the research you've done shows that it's not easy for people to do. The BBC and other organisations have been through these scandals, high-profile people. It always tends to be a David and Goliath scandal, doesn't it? Like the talent against the person who works behind the scenes, or the one with a high profile against, somebody who feels that they are too junior to speak out. How do we break that cycle? Because Gregg Wallace, it has to be pointed out, the investigation hasn't been, completed yet. He's not been found, to have done anything wrong. Officially, it doesn't look great at this stage, but, the investigation hasn't taken place. Is there a danger that he's going to be a scapegoat here for a wider problem?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I have no more information about Gregg Wallace and the claims than anybody else watching the news and reading newspapers and listening to the radio. It is an endemic problem within film and television. and a large part of it is due to the culture and the actual workforce. What you have is 50% of the workforce is freelance. According to BEC2, which is the trade union which represents a lot of the people behind the camera, there are record numbers of people unemployed, freelance people unemployed. And according to our research at the Film and TV Charity, most people have less than £1,000 in savings. And so the financial precarity, if your freelance contract doesn't get renewed or is delayed by 1 month, 2 months, that's your mortgage that's under risk. That's your rent under risk. That's not being able to turn on your light bills. And so as such, if people are scared that reporting anything, and this, as I said, I have to keep stressing, this is wider than one person. This is wider than one broadcaster. If people are scared or nervous that in reporting that might put their job at risk or not getting a new contract, we are creating cultures where bad culture, where bad actions are going to go unreported. And that will be even harder for whether it's the BBC, Channel 4, ITV, Netflix, name a broadcaster, name a streamer. It's going to be really difficult for them to really address it because you won't have a culture where people feel confident enough to report.
Indeed. That's a really good note to end on, Marcus. Thank you, Marcus Ryder, former BBC executive, now Chief Executive of the Film and TV Charity, Marcus Ryder. Thanking workplace culture expert Helen Dallymore as well, and Jonathan Gabay, Crisis Management Consultant, here with me in the studio tonight. Thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you. Well, we have contacted representatives for Gregg Wallace for comment on the claims that we've been discussing here tonight. His lawyers have previously said it is entirely false that he engages in behaviour of a sexually harassing nature. Still to come on the programme tonight. Should the UK follow Australia's lead and ban social media for under-16s? We'll hear from the families calling for tougher measures on mobile phones. Also ahead, the Prime Minister is going to be speaking at the Lord Mayor's banquet in central London tonight. We'll bring you that live. And actress Vicky McClure has paid tribute to her grandfather, the D-Day veteran Ralph McClure, who has died at the age of 99.
We've come to one of Moscow's Cold War bunkers. It was built as a top-secret command centre.
Being here really feels like you're stepping back in time. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
A show of military might and menace.
Courage, bravery and sacrifice will win the day.
It's a new subject. They'll learn about combat drones and some how to handle a Kalashnikov.
The Kremlin continues to put forward its own version of events, both present and past.
There's no mention of the fact that Russia invaded its neighbour. That's rewriting history, isn't it?
Now we have to read it carefully.
Vladimir Putin put forward his plan for a ceasefire in Ukraine, telling Kiev, pull out of your eastern territories and the war will end. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Vladimir Putin is already the Kremlin's longest-serving leader since Stalin. The question is, what will a fifth Putin term mean for Russia and the world?
Why do you support Vladimir Putin, Mr. Segal?
I can't answer questions that stupid.
I've watched Vladimir Putin attempt to create a new world order.
The St. Petersburg Economic Forum was the backdrop to Vladimir Putin's latest verbal volley that Russia could send missiles to other nations to target the West.
Ambassador, I wonder, shall we have a quick word for Sky News?
Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine?
Swedish media, oh my God, you're not afraid of being here.
American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
Russia says Evan Gershkovich was caught red-handed, but has never produced any evidence to back that up. Sky News, get the full story first.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's futures.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away. So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Last week, Australia became the first country in the world to ban under-16s from social media. And now there's pressure for the UK to follow suit. A private member's bill currently going through Parliament is designed to try to make smartphones safer and less addictive for teenagers. Our political correspondent Tamara Cohen reports.
Who are you? Yeah. It's because you're an early morning girl.
With a daughter at secondary school, mum Susie is trying to keep smartphones and social media at bay for as long as she can. 12-year-old Amelia has a phone, but her parents have disabled the internet.
I have music for the bus. I have messages to speak to my friends and parents, and call and contacts.
So by not having all these apps, what sort of things are you missing out on?
There's a lot of peer pressure. That's like, oh, how come you don't have WhatsApp up yet? And I get a lot of my friends saying, oh, your parents are so boring. Oh, how come your parents won't let you do this? There was once where, so I was coming out of netball. We were taking my two friends home. They were both literally just walking in the car park on their phones, and I was the only one walking without it.
It can be hard to hold out against the tide.
There is no doubt about it that she is left out, and I think that parents like me are just in such a hard place because we're trying to do the right thing by our children. I think the message to government would be we are in desperate need of preserving our children's childhood.
A campaign has been growing to ban unrestricted use of social media for children under 16. Now a group of MPs are hoping to pressure the government to change the law sooner rather than later.
My bill is trying to do really one simple thing through a number of measures, and that is to make the version of smartphones that children use under 16 different to those above 16. So a good example of this is like the Instagram teen account, which is good. I would like it to go a lot further, but what I'd like to see is products being developed for under 16-year-olds that are different to those for adults.
Restrictions are backed by parents who have suffered the worst trauma. Stuart's son Ollie was murdered by other teenagers after a dispute which began on social media.
There's no accountability. These platforms are put out there, kids use them, people get hurt. I firmly believe that I lost my son because of weak governance and poor legislation, full stop, which is why we are doing what we are doing. If you could see some, I can't show you any of the stuff that we saw on his phone, but it's horrific. And a lot of that stuff you can't unsee, and especially as a child.
Some children's charities are against a total ban, saying it punishes teenagers and ignores the benefits of phones when used safely. But in a world increasingly dominated by online content, a growing number of parents want to keep the guardrails on. Tamara Cohen, Sky News.
That's really good.
Let's speak to Tamara now. She joins us from Westminster. And Tamara, is this a realistic prospect for the UK, do you think?
Well, SJ, I think the pressure is building in a number of ways. And first thing to say is it's not just Australia, although they have now voted for some of the strictest rules anywhere in the world, an effective ban on under 16s having any social media profiles. But in France, they've raised the age from 13 to 15. In Denmark and Norway, they're also looking at age 15. And in New York State, they have passed a law last year for parents to be able to block addictive content, which is sent to children via algorithms. And I think it's that kind of model that MPs in the UK are now looking at. And what they're saying that is different from what's gone before is it's not just the most harmful and illegal content which parents want to protect their children from, violence and self-harm and explicit content, which forms part of legislation the government has passed about a year ago called the Online Safety Act, and that's still in the process of being implemented with tough penalties for the tech companies if they fail to enforce it. Where the MPs I spoke to say we could go further is in making it clear that spending time on social media for hours and hours is in itself potentially harmful. They point to some of the links to mental health problems and depression. They say that they're concerned by figures which show that an average 12-year-old spends as much as 21 hours a week online, and they say that that is something they want to see tackled. The government are considering whether to support this bill, which will be debated in Parliament in the coming months.
Tamara, thank you. Actor Vicky McClure announced this morning that her grandfather, D-Day veteran Ralph McClure, has died. Ralph served in the Royal Navy and ferried tanks and heavy equipment to the beaches during the Allied invasion of Europe in June 1944. I spoke to Ralph back in June. during the commemorations to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day.
Ralph, it's so good to see you. A gorgeous sunny day here at the National Memorial Arboretum. It promises to be a very special day. It's your first time visiting here. How important was it for you to be here today?
Well, obviously, you've got the memories, but to be here to make the mark for all my friends of Air Force, of the Army, as well as the Navy, and for all the people that I loved and fought with, and for those which I weren't able, and I'm not able to say it to them, because they never made it. So the memory of those, wonderful.
In a social media post, Vicky McClure said, "My granddad Ralph peacefully passed away this morning. His love for football, gardening and his family kept him young all these years. I feel so grateful having so many special memories with him. A much-loved hero by all and a loving granddad to all his grandkids and great-grandkids. Sleep well, granddad. Back with Nana Jean now, giggling and dancing in the stars." Remembering Ralph McClure. It does come here on the UK Tonight. Police smash what is thought to be the biggest drug smuggling gang in the UK. We'll have the details for you. And we're expecting Sir Keir Starmer to speak at the Lord Mayor's banquet in central London. We'll bring that to you live. A gang responsible for smuggling up to £7 billion worth of drugs into the UK have been jailed. The audacious scheme, which used innocent haulage companies to transport drugs from the continent, is believed to be the largest drug smuggling operation ever detected in the UK. Our chief North of England correspondent Gregg has this report.
This is surveillance footage of Paul Green, known as the Big Fella, and the ringleader of an international organised crime group behind what's thought to be the largest ever drug smuggling operation detected in the UK. Stephen Martin was the group's finance man. Prosecutors say the gang they led imported heroin, cocaine and cannabis worth an estimated £7 billion. More than a dozen members of the group were convicted at Manchester Crown Court in a trial that lasted almost 2 years. It is the country's longest ever criminal trial. The gang created a complex international web with front companies in the UK and here in the Netherlands, where their drugs were filmed being loaded onto a lorry. They concealed those drugs in consignments of strong-smelling foods like onions. In fact, they bought so many onions, 40 to 50 tonnes a week, that they often couldn't get rid of them and had to send them back to the continent as cover for more drugs. Those drugs they imported were fed to criminal gangs from the southeast to Scotland, each marked to denote which gang they were destined for. The National Crime Agency said what Paul Green was running distributed addiction, misery, social degradation, and in some cases, death.
Criminals like these have no regard to the public and public protection and people. It's all about their greed. It's all financially driven. It's all about financial motives. Paul Green, who was the principal here, he had no regard whatsoever. He recruited people to work in his crime group. He duped innocent members of the public using their bank accounts. Even on one occasion, he took out a mortgage in an innocent member of the public's name to repay a drug debt. And that's the lengths that these people go to.
What was laid out in court was, the National Crime Agency said, a setup that any multinational company would have been proud of.
Police, open the door.
At the time of his arrest, more than £1.5 million had passed through the bank accounts of Paul Green and his wife. He was jailed for 32 years for running what the judge described as drug smuggling on an industrial and hitherto unprecedented scale. Gregg, Sky News.
Buckingham Palace says the Queen will miss parts of the Emir of Qatar's state visit this week due to the lingering effects of a chest infection. Qatar's ruler and his wife will be formally welcomed to the UK tomorrow, but in many ways they already have a huge presence in this country. Our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills explains.
A state visit for Qatar, the ultimate diplomatic gift the UK can give. Just a short drive from Buckingham Palace and you'll see where Qatari money's been spent. Hotels like the Savoy, and one you can't miss, the Shard. Of course, the eye-catching thing on Tuesday will always be the ceremonial, so the carriages, the state banquet. But the really important part of state visits are the conversations we don't get to see, the private chats about things like future investment, and that won't be the only topic that's up for discussion. The World Cup saw Qatar's treatment of workers and human rights record heavily criticised. Now, 2 years later, they're being lauded globally for their role in negotiations between Russia and Ukraine and the release of hostages from Gaza.
There's been a major conflagration there pretty reliably every 10 or 15 years for as long as we can remember. So if we have these important allies in the region, we can work with them upstream, as it were, develop capacities there to maybe, I don't know, stave off that instability.
But leading human rights groups have concerns. Amnesty International told us it's important that Qatar's poor human rights record isn't overlooked. The few who dare to criticise the government face arrest and possible jail sentences. With Human Rights Watch adding, hosting the royal visit without addressing these issues is tantamount to royal washing Qatar's troubling rights record. Peter Tatchell was detained in Doha when he protested ahead of the World Cup.
I'm profoundly shocked that the Labour government, which is supposed to be about human rights, is prepared to cozy up to a dictatorship for the sake of money. You know, investment's important, but not at any price.
The International Media Office for Qatar told Sky News this is a historic, decades-long partnership that spans diverse fields, including diplomacy, defence, humanitarian aid, energy security, trade and investment. Over the past decade, we have consulted and coordinated extensively with global partners, including the ILO, trade unions, NGOs and the UK government, to implement a modernised, fair and effective labour system in line with the highest international standards. A full military welcome was awaiting the Emir and his wife and the media, boosting the global recognition the UK government believes that Qatar deserves. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News at Buckingham Palace.
Now, my next guest tonight has become a social media sensation after his granddaughters posted videos of him singing on TikTok. 92-year-old Edwin Rayner has been singing all his life, but when his wife of 60 years died, he felt like there was no reason to carry on. But nearly a decade later, he has now amassed almost 500,000 followers on TikTok after his twin granddaughters made him an account. He's become such a sensation that record labels and international superstars have been getting in touch. Let's take a listen.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go. Take a look at the 5 and 10. It's glistening once again with candy canes and silver lanes that glow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Toys in every store.
Well, I caught up with Edwin and his daughter Diane a little earlier and started by asking him how it all began.
I've been singing all my life, and I sang with a choir, sang with a church choir, and it was wonderful. Well, carrying on then, I lost Margaret 9 years ago, who was my total support and did everything with me. And I thought, oh, I just don't want to sing anymore. I don't want to do anything anymore. But anyway, I feel confident. I got a message from her, which told me to pull yourself together and get out and do some singing. So I did. And the first places I went to sing was nursing homes, old people's homes, and thoroughly enjoyed singing in homes. And we used to sing all sorts of silly songs, or I did, and do monologues, Albert and the Lion, and it was great doing it. And then Liv and Laura, two of my grandchildren, got hold of me, and well, they didn't exactly get hold of me, but they said to me, "Grandad, we're going to put you on TikTok." And I said,
"Did you know what TikTok was, Edwin?"
No idea whatsoever. TikTok, going to put you on TikTok. So I said, "What's TikTok?" Oh, it's where you put songs and people listen to you and they like to hear you sing. And they put me on, put this song on, and we thought a couple of hundred likes if we're lucky, but we got something like 6,000-7,000 likes to the song. And today, well, going forward today, I've now got 450,000 followers on TikTok and 150,000 followers on Instagram. So I'm doing well. And I'm on Spotify as well. I've got a wonderful family.
You're doing extremely well, Edwin. I just want to bring Diane in at this point. Diane, did you know all of this was going on?
Yes, I did. It was, my dad said to me, well, Liv's going to put me there, I'm going to put me on Spotify. I said, okay, great, you know, and the same as he said, I thought might get 100 likes, might get 200 likes. And it seemed to go absolutely wild. It seemed to go, and Dad loved it, absolutely loved it. We were all so proud of him and also pleased for him because, you know, he loves singing, has always loved singing. And then they put more on, and it was decided to put one on a week, and it just seemed to grow and grow and grow.
Your songs and your singing are bringing a lot of joy to people. Edwin, what do you get out of it? Why do you want to do this?
Why do I want to do it? Well, I didn't know I did I? I mean, I didn't know TikTok, and I didn't know it was going to be the sensation everybody says it is. Now, what do I now? I thoroughly enjoy it, I have to say, and I love reading the wonderful comments that people make. And it's my life again, you know. I've really got something to do and something I really, really enjoy doing. Yeah, I never believed it could possibly happen. You know, I'm not really a youngster anymore, and to be able to do this is absolutely wonderful, and to be able to entertain people again is unbelievable. You're 92, you're past it. But I keep telling people like that comment to me that we gave up, and I tell them, well, don't you give up. If you played the piano, some did. I say, you start playing again. I give them messages and tell them, and yeah. I think
if you can do it, so can they, Edwin. If you can do it, so can they. It's a really inspirational message you're putting out there. Just finally, I can guess who's leading the family sing-along this Christmas. Diane, I take it it's not you. Edwin, what's your favourite Christmas song as we go? What are you going to be singing this Christmas period?
My favourite Christmas song is It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas.
Yeah.
White Christmas, they're my favourite songs. I love all the carols, of course, but my favourite songs, I think, are White Christmas. What's that one? I can't remember. Andy Williams song. I do a lot of Andy Williams stuff as well. He was absolutely...
Oh, no, you've put me on the spot there. Name that tune, the Andy Williams song. Can anyone in my ear tell me?
No,
it's...
The most wonderful time of the year.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's it.
That's the one.
Wonderful time of the year. Very much mistletoeing and hearts will be glowing and be of good cheer. Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, well, thank you to Edwin and Diane for bringing some Christmas cheer. We've gone past the 1st of December, it's allowed. Right, still to come on the programme tonight, Sir Keir Starmer. He's going to be speaking at the Lord Mayor's banquet in central London. We're standing by for that and we'll bring it to you live. And coming up in the sport with Julia is the Premier League title already Liverpool's to lose after yesterday's victory over Manchester City.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week, we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
Free, wherever you get your news. The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way. I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people. Welcome to the Politics Hub.
A police force has apologised. If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Are you not concerned that that could lead to all-out war?
Hello there, good evening. There are fears of an upsurge in violence. What's at stake here?
You are watching the press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Julia is here with the sport. Welcome back. Julia, what a match yesterday. Liverpool now 9 points clear at the top of the Premier League after that victory over Manchester City. We were watching it in our house. couldn't quite believe what was going on. You're wearing Liverpool red today as well, just to signify what a moment this is, because it looks like it's theirs to lose now, right?
Yeah, SJ, it wasn't meant to be Liverpool red, but it is the Reds who are enjoying such a comfortable cushion at the top of the Premier League. Impressively so. We'd wondered what we'd see from them after, Jurgen Klopp left. Arne Slot's transition, the takeover, has been seamless, so much so that they're calling it the Slot machine, because they've won 11 of their opening 13 games. They have been so consistent where their rivals have not really managed, and that means they have this cushion. So you'd have to say it is theirs to lose. Historically, teams who've had this kind of gap at this point in the season do go on to win the Premier League title. The only thing to say is there's a lot of football still to be played.
Yeah, there is. It's so early, isn't it? We're not even at Christmas yet.
No.
Out of the chasing pack, who do you see as Liverpool's biggest danger? If Liverpool were to slip up, as you said, there's months to go yet until the end of the season. Who do you think's their closest rival?
Nobody wants to write City off because they've had such a stranglehold on this Premier League title for the last couple of seasons. But even for them, 11 points is looking too far. Arsenal and Chelsea have identical records in second and third. Arsenal are in second only on alphabetical order, literally. But you feel probably they are tougher just because they have the experience of going toe-to-toe with City the last 2 seasons, and because defensively they are a little bit better placed than Chelsea. But as you said, Christmas football always separates the real contenders from the chasing pack. So we're looking forward to a busy December. Yeah, thank you so much, SJ. Here's the rest of the sport then.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
You got more chance of winning the lottery than making it as a professional footballer.
I think your responsibility is to guide them in the same direction as I went myself.
Things aren't just handed to you on a plate. I think you have to fight for them, and it's probably only the tough that survive, really.
Natural skills is not enough. The impact has to be straight away.
Don't let anyone tell you what you can and can't do.
If you have that belief, then that's the most important thing.
Keep it fun for as long as possible. If you love what you do, you'll be able to get through the tougher times.
If you're going to make it as a professional, pressure's coming, so we don't want the kids feeling it prematurely.
The top club, we don't have time and space to grow up the young. He plays if he's good enough.
Whether it's playing in the parks, competing in cages, or showcasing skills on the streets. For so many young boys, the dream is to become a professional footballer. But the reality...
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Now we're going to take you to Switzerland, where 2 patients who had suffered catastrophic spinal injuries have been able to walk short distances and even climb stairs thanks to a medical breakthrough. Surgeons implanted electrodes in their brains to reawaken dormant nerve fibres in the spinal cord and re-establish control of the leg muscles. Our science and medical correspondent Thomas Moore has this remarkable story.
Wolfgang is wide awake as surgeons carefully drill through his skull and then insert electrodes into his brain. It's the only way of knowing they've reached the right place. He's been paralysed below the waist since a skiing accident in 2006. Unable to move his legs, he shuffles downstairs on his bottom and uses a wheelchair. But when the electrodes are switched on, there is a remarkable transformation. Signals from the brain are able to pass through the damage in his spinal cord and help him walk.
If I want, I can a little bit walk or go to the steps upstairs and downstairs, and if I need something in the kitchen where I have to stand up, I can do it. In future, I think we don't need a wheelchair again. It's a long way, but I think the dream comes true.
Research using artificial intelligence found that a part of the brain called the lateral hypothalamus, previously thought to control arousal and motivation, also had a role in walking. Surgeons inserted electrodes to stimulate neurons in the region with tiny electrical impulses. This reactivated nerve fibres in the spinal cord that hadn't been damaged by the accident, allowing the brain to regain some control of the leg muscles.
Our interpretation is that this small region is actually talking to all the key regions of the brain that can regain access to the spinal cord. So it's some kind of amplificator of the intention to walk.
The technique was tested in rats and mice, but 2 human patients have had surgery now, and even while they were still on the operating table, there were hopeful signs.
When you switch on the stimulator, the patient says, "I feel my legs." So this was, of course, a kind of relief. And she said, "I feel the urge to walk."
The other patient, who hasn't been named, could only walk with a harness before the operation. Now she can support herself. It's early days for the technology, but it's already helping patients who were told they would never walk again. Thomas Moore, Sky News.
Now, we are expecting the Prime Minister to be speaking in central London tonight at the Lord Mayor's banquet. Standing by is our chief political correspondent, John Craig, who's joining us, and we'll be watching the speech from our studio in Westminster. No invite for your black tie tonight, John?
Well, I think we were invited, but we decided to watch it from here in our Westminster bureau. This is the glittering occasion, happens every November or December. First of all, it's the Lord Mayor, then it's the Prime Minister, then it's the Lord Chancellor. My understanding is the Lord Mayor hasn't even started speaking yet, so it's going to be a few minutes. Traditionally, it's a speech about international affairs, so we can expect to hear from Sir Keir Starmer delivering his first speech at this occasion, talking about the latest developments in Ukraine, all the talk of negotiations that Vladimir Zelensky was talking about in his Sky News interview at the weekend. He'll obviously talk about relations with the United States, wanting to do business with President Trump, but also with what he's called his reset with Europe as well. His principal message is going to be Britain is back. He's likely to criticise the record of the Conservatives in foreign affairs over the past 14 years. And he's going to talk about the UK being a trusted and enduring partner for other countries and a reliable ally. Britain is back and can stand tall on the world stage and is a trusted ally, he'll say.
OK. John, will you just bear with me a second? We've just heard that Israel have attacked a number of Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. That's Israel attacking Hezbollah targets inside Lebanon. We're just hearing that from our news wires. Yalda Hakim's going to have more updates on that for you in the world. That's coming up next.